Alright, this video is pure speculation, no reporting here. I'm just using context clues, and we're gonna go through a couple trades I feel like might be imminent this year. And usually you can kind of look at a team and the landscape of the NBA in general. You could look at a team and maybe they're overloaded at one position. Maybe they only have one real tradable asset. Maybe they have a bunch of expiring deals. Maybe they want to tank. Maybe they're going all in, right? You could kind of take a look at it and figure out what team's going to be in what mode. And these are no predictions because things have to go a certain way for a lot of these things to happen. But I want to start with the Golden State Warriors, and I want to start with Moses Moody, right? Everyone's going to talk about Kuminga. We don't know what's going on with Kuminga, but I feel like Kuminga coming back even furthers this point for me because the Warriors haven't signed anybody yet, but we're assuming they're going to sign Al Horford and they're going to sign DeAnthony Melton. So let's operate in the hypothetical that they signed DeAnthony Melton. There's also rumors they might sign Seth Curry as well. There's Malcolm Brogdon rumors. There's a bunch of rumors about them getting more guards. And GP2, by the way. Okay, so let's say they get DeAnthony Melton, GP2. Safe. That means they would have Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski, GP2, and DeAnthony Melton. That is 5 players that essentially play your 2. Now, I know in the Warriors system right now, Moody would be slotting in as that 3. But to me, this is where he becomes a tradable asset. Because if I have Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, one's a better shooter, one's a better defender of guards. Assuming Melton is fully recovered from his injury, you also have GP2 in this hypothetical who's a better defender. So the real way Moody would prove his value for this team would be sliding up at the 3. Now, of course, Jimmy is going to be the starting 3, but I think we all know Jimmy's going to play a lot of backup 4, meaning the backup 3 needs to be filled, and that's where we get into Kuminga versus Moody. And I really like Moses Moody. I think the Warriors really like Moses Moody. But if I have Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, GP2, Podziemski, who would I rather have with those guys? I think I would rather have what Kuminga brings, but that's a whole different discussion, right? Moody might be their only real trade asset to upgrade their size, whether that's a starting center or a bigger wing, a bigger forward to put next to Draymond and Jimmy Butler. Because again, think about it, Jimmy Butler is the only 3 on this team currently. Moody would be the backup 3, excluding Kuminga. But does it make more sense to go upgrade even more in terms of your physical presence on the wing or a center, right? Or you get a starting level center and all of a sudden you slide down where Draymond's back at the 4, Jimmy's back at the 3, you got Steph Curry, Buddy Hield, and that makes a little bit more sense depending on what center you get, right? I had a trade in mind, and I think Al Horford's going to be great. I think Al Horford's still very good. I'm a big fan of Quentin Post, TJD, I'm iffy on, right? But I had a trade in mind of, again, this would assume something went wrong on the other side, but what about like Moody, TJD for Jakob Poeltl? Right now, it doesn't really seem like a smart trade for the Raptors, right? But the Raptors are expecting to be a decent team this year. What if they're not? What if they're awful? And I don't believe they will be. I've made videos about I think the Raptors are going to be good. But if they're not, does it make sense to keep on to Jakob Poeltl? You pair Moody back up with his high school teammate and Scotty Barnes, you get TJD. I think that's a pretty good trade. Y'all let me know if I'm making sense, right? Because Brandon Podziemski does a lot of things on the court. He's their secondary playmaker. He gets boards, right? Buddy Hield is their specialist 3-point shooter. DeAnthony Melton's a better defender. GP2 is a defensive specialist. Moody is kind of floating in between a 2 and a 3, but he's not truly a 3. So maybe it makes sense to get a center, slot everyone down a spot, and you don't really have a backup 3 besides maybe Kuminga here, but now you feel more comfortable going with the smaller lineups with a Melton or a GP2 at the 3 because you have Jakob Poeltl behind him. You have Jakob Poeltl, Draymond Green, Al Horford. I don't know. I really like Moses Moody, but he's their only trade chip because he's their 4th highest paid player. He's a young player that has value around the league. I don't know. I like Moody, and I could see him having a huge year, especially if Kuminga is not on the team. But if we get to midway through the season and Buddy Hield is playing more than him, and GP2 and DeAnthony Melton and Pods are all playing more than him, which we could see Steve Kerr do that. We've seen it before. it would make sense to maybe use that asset to go get a starting center or try to find a bigger three. And this video is really for the diehard NBA fans because I just spent 5 minutes on a potential Moses Moody trade. I'll try to speed it up a little bit. I can't make any promises. But next I want to go to Milwaukee and I want to focus on Bobby Portis, but Bobby Portis and one of the guards because they have so many guards but no wings, similar to the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors at least have Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody. The Bucks, the only small forward they have on the roster is Taurean Prince. But they have all these guards: Ryan Rollins, Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., Gary Harris, Cole Anthony, all these guards, no small forward. And when you think about their front court, who are their 4 best players as of right now? Maybe it'll change throughout the year, but as of right now, I would say Giannis, Miles Turner, Bobby Portis, Kyle Kuzma. Let's give Kuzma a break for, let's just assume he's who he's been, right? He's not going to be that terrible. But those are their 4 best players. Your 4 best players can't really play together. That's not ideal. And the reason I would be more inclined to trade Bobby Portis than a Kyle Kuzma is because they're already lacking athleticism on the wing, and Kyle Kuzma does provide a little bit of that. You could see some lineups with Kuzma at the 3. Who knows? We might see some lineups with Giannis at the 3, assuming they keep these 4 together. Like, if they're gonna play, we might see a lineup of Miles Turner, Bobby Portis, Giannis. I don't know. But how do we find them a small forward? The first guy that came to mind was Dillon Brooks. I really like Dillon Brooks on this team, but the Bucks don't have any real young asset that Phoenix would want. I guess maybe Ryan Rollins, but one, I like Ryan Rollins, and if I'm the Bucks, I'm not trying to give him up. But also, if I'm the Suns, I'm not trading Dillon Brooks for Ryan Rollins. Unless you truly believe in Ryan Rollins as like a starter going forward. Maybe they do. But I don't really see that being a trade. And that's kind of the problem here because no really bad team is going to want to take on Bobby Portis. It's going to be either a contending team or a middle-of-the-pack team trying to take that next step. A team that came to mind was Portland for Matisse Thybulle. Even Matisse Thybulle is not really a 3, but he's the best defender. He would be their best perimeter defender immediately. And I actually feel like Bobby Portis would be a good fit in Portland. Of course, they got Donovan Clingan, Robert Williams, Hanson, right? But we know Robert Williams is going to miss some time, and Bobby Portis could be a nice little scorer off the bench, not take away too much from the other guys. I feel like that would be a good fit. But let's try to get someone. I mean, Matisse Thybulle is not a bad option, but I don't think the Bucks are trading franchise legend Bobby Portis for. I was going to say that, but they traded Chris Middleton for Kuzma, so what do I know? And you know what? Actually, looking at it, I don't think they could do much better than Matisse Thybulle without giving up like a first-round pick. Right, I was gonna say, Haywood Highsmith, but Brooklyn, why would Brooklyn want to just take on Bobby Portis? They would want to pick. Again, the one I really wanted to figure out was getting Dillon Brooks to Milwaukee, but if you're Milwaukee, should you really be giving up assets right now? I don't think so. So Bobby Portis or Matisse Thybulle, I guess, right? I feel like they just need someone else on the wing. You could also look at this team as a team that should be taking flyers. Maybe you do the unthinkable and trade for Patrick Williams. Do I believe in him? No, but if you're the Bucks, you don't have a lot of young talent, maybe you do something like that. And you're not in position to trade any of your first-round picks, really. If you were, I would say go get a Dillon Brooks, go get a Haywood Highsmith. But as of right now, they're bargain shopping, and I would say Matisse Thybulle, it's okay. It's okay, right? I thought I would find a better solution, but they just still need someone on the wing to help out. If I think of anyone else, you'll see it on the screen as I'm editing, but there's really not that many out there to begin with, and then trying to get one without giving up a first-round pick is very hard to do. So we're going to move on to Lauri Markkanen, who was balling in Eurobasket, had a pretty tough year last year, but it's always difficult to gauge what exactly is going on in Utah. Are they trying to win? We know they're not trying to win games, but like, what are they doing there? Is the culture and environment the reason he's not looking good? In theory, you would think he's a player that looks better around great players, but we haven't really, when he was balling out, that wasn't the case either. So I don't know what's going on there. But after having all the trade value in the world 2 years ago, everyone was making fun of the Warriors because you're not going to include Podziemski, all that, right? he signed his deal and his value went down. Now, I'm not sure it's all the way back to where it was, but I think it's back up a little bit. But we see right now in the NBA that teams are being extremely stingy. But this Utah team, I don't know what their asking price is going to be, but I don't think they want Lauri Markkanen on this team. Now, maybe they could say Lauri Markkanen on this team is not going to change anything. We're still going to be terrible. But I think they're probably finally at the point where they're ready to pivot into an actual rebuild. And they brought back Lauri Markkanen not because they wanted him to be this pillar of the franchise, because they didn't want to lose out on the asset. And he's now 28 years old, which is not old at all, but it's old when you don't have anything in place. You don't have another young star you're building with to say, okay, when he's 20 or when he's 31, this young star is going to be all NBA level. We'll have 2 stars in different ends of their prime. No, you don't have anything, right? Ace Bailey, we'll see what happens. Cody Williams was disappointing. We'll see what happens. Walker Kessler, you've been trying to trade him since you got him. Keontae George, I was a huge fan of him in college. We haven't seen that much from him. Maybe he'll still be good. Taylor Hendricks, we haven't seen that much from him. Like the brightest spot of your rebuild right now is Filipowski. So it's like, it's different if your rebuild was already in motion and you could look at it and say, okay, 3 years, he'll be 31. That's not that bad. In reality, in 3 years, I would say a lot of these guys will not be here. I'm not saying one in particular, but Isaiah Collier, Bryce Sensabaugh, Keontae George, Walker Kessler, who else did I mention? Cody Williams, Taylor Hendricks, all these young guys, I would guess at least half of them are not on the roster by the time the Jazz are a competent team again. So why are we going to hold on to Lauri Markkanen into his early to mid 30s when we might be able to flip him right now and get something of value? Now, what is of value? I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure what those demands are for Danny Ainge, but I feel like, again, just looking around the league, I don't think the market is what it was. I think people are being a lot more stingy with their money. And Lauri Markkanen is a very good player that fits a lot of places. But to me, the ideal fit would be with a player that's a true playmaker. We just seen Porzingis go team up with Trae Young. I think the place I would most want to see Lauri Markkanen go is Detroit. Now, Pistons fans, I don't want to make you guys too mad here because I'm sure you love all your young players, but it would have to be something around either Jaden Ivey or Ron Holland. Like, I think if you do Karis LeVert, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, that's enough to make the money work. And I guess the question would be, do the Jazz really view Isaiah Stewart as an asset in this deal? Because if they do, maybe you can go Isaiah Stewart, Tobias Harris. I don't know why I don't want to put Tobias Harris in it. I feel like I don't know. But Isaiah Stewart, Tobias Harris, first-round pick, 2 first-round picks. If they like Isaiah Stewart on that deal, maybe you can get away with something like that. Or you can add Ron Holland and make it Isaiah Stewart, Tobias Harris, Ron Holland, and say, you know what, you get no first-round picks, or you get a very, very heavily protected first-round pick. I don't know, but I really like Lauri Markkanen in Detroit, and I would rather keep Jaden Ivey over Ron Holland if I had to choose, because I do feel like Lauri Markkanen, what makes him a great fit with Cade is he's not a creator, really. He's going to spot up, he's going to roll to the rim, he's going to sit in a dunker spot, he's going to crash the offensive boards, he's going to be an amazing basketball player, but you still need that other creator, and I would still want to keep that upside of Jaden Ivey being that secondary creator, and then Lauri Markkanen becomes even more valuable when he has 2 guys that can create for him. So let me know if you would do this deal from either side, right? Tobias Harris, Isaiah Stewart, Ron Holland, and a top 10 protected first-round pick. Do you do that if you're the Pistons? Absolutely for me. Do you do that if you're Utah? I'm not sure, right? I don't know what the market is. And again, of course, it depends on your evaluation of a Ron Holland or an Isaiah Stewart. I don't know. They might view Ron Holland as a better prospect than Jaden Ivey. Who's to say they're wrong in that? So I don't know with that one. I just know I would love to see Lauri Markkanen play next to a true point guard like Cade Cunningham. He would be a great fit next to Jalen Duren. And the Pistons are a team that has enough assets to risk it. And I like Ron Holland, but I would be okay with shipping him off and still having picks to figure out, okay, how are we going to build around Lauri Markkanen, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, right? So I would feel good about that deal, especially since I already have Asar Thompson. So Cade Cunningham, Lauri Markkanen, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey as your starting five. I would feel good about that. You're going to be a little bit thin, but that's kind of the cost of it. But I would like that. Any other team that you guys can think of for Lauri Markkanen? I was kind of thinking the Lakers, but it would have to be like a 4-for-1, not even a 3-for-1. Because when you think about the Lakers, they have Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves as three. I don't want to call Reeves an elite creator, but he's a very good creator for others, right? So you got all those guys, and you don't really have finishers. You have Ayton, who's a good finisher. Jackson Hayes still on the team. But and by finishing, I mean shooting as well, right? They don't have an elite knockdown shooter. Maybe Connect is that, but they don't have that elite knockdown shooter. I would assume Jackson Hayes is not going to play that much. Rui Hachimura, Vanderbilt, Marcus Smart, like they don't have that sure finisher, including themselves, right? Like they can all shoot the ball, LeBron, Luka, Austin, but they would all rather, take a step back than take a catch and shoot three. LeBron, of course, is a good finisher at the rim, right? He's a good cutter, all that, but it's not what it used to be. And Lauri Markkanen is that guy, right? The only guy in NBA history, right, to have 200 threes and 100 dunks in the season. That player next to LeBron and Luka, that would be an amazing fit. Again, I know it's unrealistic. It would have to be a 4-for-1 to make the money work, but it could work with a Rui, Vanderbilt, Maxi Kleber, Dalton Connect, and of course, you'd have to throw in those first-round picks. But we know that's not going to happen, so let's not even focus on that, at least not this year, right? Maybe that's something the Lakers will entertain when LeBron is no longer there, because Lauri Markkanen is a player you want to put next to an elite playmaker like a Luka, so maybe they'll revisit on that one. All right, so I got one more thing I want to talk about, and again, this is pure speculation, not due to any reporting, anything like that, but it's just, again, using context clues. A couple days ago, I made a video, I think it was titled Lock It In, something like that. And I was talking about my over-under locks, and I locked in Minnesota over 49.5 because I'm expecting them to be a great team this year. But there's a world where they're not. I also want to talk about Atlanta because Trae Young seems to be upset that they're not giving him an extension. The same exact extension that De'Aaron Fox just got, Trae Young is eligible for. But the Hawks seem to be in no rush to give it to him. And like a month ago at the beginning of the Micah Parsons Dallas situation, Trae Young tweeted out something about that's why you pay the man early when someone wants to take less to stay in a place he wanted to be forever. All that very coded in, pay me, I want to be here. Something's going on there, and it's not anything nefarious, right? We could all see it. The Hawks want to see what this team looks like before they commit to Trae Young, because they've built a team that is obviously predicated on Trae Young making it go, but also a team that could pivot very easily to build another team, right? They could change this up very quickly. Not saying that they could go get someone better than Trae Young, but they could change up the identity of this team very quickly. They got a lot of assets. They got a lot of versatile players that, let's say you want to go get a Zach LaVine and move Dyson to the one. Like, they could do stuff like that. I'm not a Zach LaVine guy, by the way, but I'm just saying they got a lot of options on this team. But, sorry, that was very long-winded. We are all kind of expecting Atlanta to be good, because why wouldn't they be good? Trae Young is good. Jalen Johnson will be back. Another year of Ricochet. They brought in Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They brought in Porzingis. They brought in Luke Kennard. They added a bunch of shooting. They should be good, which sets up Trae Young to look bad if they don't look good. This is the best team he's ever had. It might be the worst conference he's ever played in. There is no reason this shouldn't be a top 5 seed. But if they're in the play-in again, that maybe makes them look at it and say, you know what, we should go in a different direction. Maybe he's not the guy to lead this team. Is that a fair assessment from this 1 year? No, but I don't think they're making it from this 1 year. I love Trae Young. I'm not, but I'm just talking about it out loud. There's a reason they're not giving him that extension right now. And I bring up Minnesota, and I bring up the fact that I had them locked in at over 49.5 wins. Again, this is not me predicting, what's going to happen, because I believe Minnesota is going to be very, very good. But if they're not good, I'm looking at one guy in particular, because I feel like the only way they could not be good, besides injuries, of course, is if Jaden McDaniels just plateaus as a player. If he's still getting better, they're going to keep getting better as a team. But if they're a middling 7, 8 seed, 6 seed again, maybe they finally look at it and say, this is who Jaden McDaniels is. And I don't want to get into a debate about who he is as a player. I would just say for me, at times he can be a little bit underwhelming. And I had people straight up tell me that they wouldn't trade him straight up for Darius Garland. I had Minnesota fans tell me that. So I'm wondering if they get off to the same start they got off to last year and they look like they've kind of plateaued as a team and the Hawks don't look like this great team, could we potentially see a trade here between Minnesota and Atlanta? And again, don't take me out of context here. I'm on record saying I think Minnesota's going to be great. I like Atlanta. I think they're going to be good. I'm a little bit more worried about them. It just seems like they're set up for a disappointment. But I'm not saying Minnesota's going to be bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just talking about hypothetically, if they aren't that good, right? I could see a deal between these two teams happening. Other potential Trae Young spots, there aren't that many. And that's the quiet part about the Trae Young situation. He's been available. I'm not saying he's just been, available for anything, but if any team really wanted to go out and just overwhelm Atlanta to go get Trae Young, I feel like they could have over the last 3 years. But let me know if I'm tripping. I just don't see many teams that would really want Trae Young right now, which is crazy to say. I could think of like Portland maybe, if they want to give up on Scoot. You could do like Scoot, Jeremy Grant. That's a crazy contract for Atlanta to take, but Scoot, Jeremy Grant, 2 first-round picks, something like that. I could see the Wizards maybe wanting depending on how they feel about Bub Carrington. They might feel like they have their point guard of the future in Bub Carrington, maybe. Maybe the Bulls give up on Kobe White and Josh Giddey. I don't know about that one. So it's just a hypothetical. I think Atlanta's going to be good, but there is a reason they have not extended him. And if they aren't good, I think there's a real possibility they look to move on. But this video was really just made out of boredom. I'm not saying anything I don't believe in. I'm not trying to have any hot takes. I'm just looking at the landscape of the NBA, and those are some things that I find to be interesting going into this season. Trades I feel like might be on the horizon. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know if I'm a horrible GM, all that in the comments down below. Please drop a like, please comment, please subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm out. Peace.